We're going to get moving into actually one of two pieces of legislation that take into consideration this PFAS chemical and the impact it's having. And the first one is getting right at that point that you made about biosolids. And so it's really my pleasure to introduce our next speaker here, Senator Sara Love. Senator Love has represented District 16th since 2019, a senator now, and in most before that as delegate since 2019, where she served on the Environment and Transportation Committee. Also notable is her, I guess, previous chair position on the Chesapeake Bay Commission. Just after the end of the year, you cycled off that, but you're the chair of the Chesapeake Bay Commission, which is a tri-state body that's working on policy across the Chesapeake Bay, which is really, really good. And I'll just say, Senator Love has a proven track record of turning environmental priorities into enforceable law. We saw the George Walter Taylor Act, which was her piece of legislation, as well as some that I've had the privilege to work with you on, including the Clean Water Justice Act and I would say, the most notable named bill, the zombie permit bill, way back when, which was a lot of fun working on that. But today she's going to talk to us about how we can protect our communities, especially our rural communities, from PFAS contamination through the use of biosolids as a fertilizer. And so, Senator, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to get started on this topic.
Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate that introduction and the invitation to be here today. If it's all right, I'm actually going to kick it to Betsy Nicholas from the Potomac Waterkeepers Network, and then I will follow on Betsy.
Sounds great, Senator. Thank you. And my colleague Brent Walls took a lot of what I was going to say, so I can be relatively short here, especially since you got two lawyers presenting here. We can always be dangerous in this way. Um, but I really want this to make sense from a practical level. We're throwing a lot of terms and technical information at people, and it can get overwhelming. One just note on all of the conversions that Brent mentioned before about parts per billion, parts per trillion, then you get into micrograms per liter and all of these things. I have to look at a cheat sheet for those to understand them. So we can help you make one. You can take one from our materials. So don't get overwhelmed by those aspects of this because unfortunately, this is something that impacts us all. PFAS chemicals, as you just heard, have been around for a very long time. And the toxicity of them has been known for since probably the 1950s and 60s, depending on what industries and what particular PFAS sets of chemicals. There are about 15,000 of these chemicals out there. So we are behind the ball right now on trying to get a handle on this problem, particularly with them being used in so many consumer products. So just going through this diagram a little bit, industries started initially using PFAS because of the waterproofing capabilities on it. So anytime you have something like a plastic wrapper that you get your fast food in, and it doesn't get that giant grease stain on it, or it keeps it sealed inside, that's PFAS that's doing that for you. When you microwave popcorn and you got that sort of shiny, slippery film on the inside, that's PFAS. But it goes much further than that as well. Most cosmetics, again, for the same reason, have PFAS in them so that they're, again, if you put a foundation on your face so that it sticks to your skin, but shields oil from coming out, and it itself becomes waterproof on your skin. Same with different types of clothing, any waterproof clothes, cookware, as was referenced before. All of these consumer products then are getting in various ways, from our ingestion to our use of them, put in both landfills and going into wastewater treatment plants from our own consumption of these and the use and flow through our body. And that gives us an opportunity to stop them before they get further out into the environment. That's what we're really looking to do here because it's a centralized location that puts them all together, both at landfills and at wastewater treatment plants, where we can then say, we're going to keep it from going beyond here. Stop it at the source, which can also mean stopping it at the industry. So Senator Love's bill that she worked on 2 years ago, and she'll probably talk about a little bit more on pre-treatment, was really focused at stopping it at that industrial level. So before it gets to the wastewater treatment plant. And that's an authority that wastewater treatment plants have. They can say either, we're not taking your discharge because we don't have the capabilities to properly treat it, or say you industry have to filter this out some way before we take your discharge. And that's what that bill sought to help them do in some other ways that the senator can explain to you. So I wanted to talk a little bit about a process that Senator Love undertook with many, many great participants for the entirety of the summer and even into the fall, of work groups discussing these issues with wastewater treatment plants, MDE, and all of these different folks moving along together on these issues. And I just wanted to quickly flag a couple of things that we heard from wastewater treatment plants in particular, that they were passive receivers. True, they don't make the PFAS, but a wastewater treatment plant's entire purpose is to treat pollution. That's why they're there in the first place. They didn't make the E. coli that comes in with managing waste or any of those other things either. So that I don't think is a compelling reason for not doing something about it. And some confusion around background levels of PFAS. There are no background levels of PFAS. PFAS is only a man-made chemical. It doesn't exist in nature. So where you find existing PFAS, it is a pollutant, it is a toxic pollutant, and it was put there through various man-made processes. So again, Senator Love is working on a bill that will try and stop this at the source before land application. And I just want to give you a tiny bit of explanation about that. That for many decades, partially treated sewage sludge, also referred to by the industry as biosolids, have been used as fertilizer. And they dispose of this sewage sludge by land applying it, generally on farm fields, but not exclusively so. What this has the effect of doing is taking concentrated PFAS and dispersing it widely into rural communities. So often the high volumes of sewage sludge are coming from big urban areas. More people, more poop. And then that is driven out to farm fields and applied on those farm fields. And unfortunately, it is laden with PFAS that is then uptaken by plants, runs off into the streams and groundwater wells, and contaminates the soil, which will impact whatever crops or animals are then grazing there. And this bill aims to help stop that problem that will just keep spreading this around and continuing the PFAS uptake cycle. And I will now hand it over to you, Senator Love.
Thanks, Betsy. Excuse me. And I really want to thank river keepers and shore rivers and all of the other environmental groups that have worked on this, because it really, as Brent said early on, it really has been a community effort. We've had watermen, we've had farmers, we've had advocates, a whole host of people coming out to talk about this really important issue. And PFAS has gotten more and more notice over the years, which is good because the more people know about it and the more people understand it, the more pressure we can build to regulate it. Just a 2-second background, as Matt mentioned, I'm on the Chesapeake Bay Commission. I've been on that commission for about 7 years now. And it was through that commission and also the fact that my niece's husband is a firefighter that I learned about PFAS. And so my entire career in the legislature, I've been working on it. I had a bill to ban the use of PFAS in firefighting foam in testing and training. We passed that legislation. Then we moved on, as Matt mentioned, to the George Walter Taylor Act. George Walter Taylor was a firefighter at Patuxent Naval Base who died of PFAS related cancer. And that bill was really the first one in the nation that pulled in a lot of what other states were doing. So we banned it in firefighting foam. We had a notice for when PFAS was in firefighting gear. We banned it in food packaging and we banned it in rugs and carpets. And we also directed the Maryland Department of the Environment to come up with a PFAS action plan. So, with those two pieces of legislation, we're starting to stop it from going into the environment. The next piece of legislation, as Betsy mentioned, was taking a more upstream view. So we were looking at those significant industrial users, having the wastewater treatment plants and the Maryland Department of Environment to look upstream, figure out who those significant industrial users were that were using this PFAS, so we can again start to get it out of the waste stream. Last year, as was mentioned, we had the Biosolids bill, and we're bringing it back again this year. I have two PFAS bills this year, the Biosolids bill, and then a bill that Delegate Sheila Ruth will present later on phasing out the use of PFAS in a number of products. As Betsy mentioned, last year the wastewater treatment plants complained that they weren't making this stuff, so it wasn't their fault that they had it, that we didn't have enough information about the levels of PFAS. And it would cost a huge amount of money if they had to remediate that PFAS. So we've come back with these two bills, one saying, okay, we're going to stop it at the source. You're saying, it's not your fault, it's in the wastewater. We're going to get it out of the environment upstream. So that's the product bill that Delegate Ruth will talk about. And then this bill that I'm bringing with Delegate Dana Stein in the House, as Betsy mentioned, really targets the application of this material, the biosolids, on our agricultural land. So the output of these wastewater treatment plants and trying to make sure that we're not poisoning the farmland from which we get our food. And it was, I'll be honest, exceedingly disappointing last session, the pushback that we got, but we've had incredible participation over the summer. I will say that I used to joke that it wasn't a day if we didn't have a PFAS meeting. We had 5 different work groups. We had one on the testing of the biosolids and the timelines. When could those tests be returned? We had one on the costs that it would take to remediate the biosolids and where possible funding could come from. We had one on technology and the latest and greatest on the destruction, and then one on the product bill and one on the biosolids bill. And we had, as Betsy mentioned, just a huge group of people that were dedicated to that. And we learned a lot. Matt, I see you're on there. So I'll stop in a moment. We learned a lot through that, and we really crafted this piece of legislation. You can see it there, the tiered approach to merge not only the numbers that we see from our wastewater treatment plant, the biosolids with PFAS in them, and also the health effects. and come up with something that was really reasonable. So if the biosolids were over 50 parts per billion, there's absolutely no land application allowed. Between that 25 and 50, they have to work with the Maryland Department of the Environment on a mitigation plan. So perhaps they have to stop land applying for a little while. Perhaps they have to do setbacks from water sources, number of other things that they have to do, look upstream and figure out where that PFAS is coming from. I encourage everybody to come out and support this bill. We are getting huge pushback. The nation, I am not exaggerating, the nation is actually looking at us. So trade groups are pushing hard on Maryland because they don't want any regulations on PFAS. So I'll stop there. Thank you all so much. And thanks for all your advocacy.
Yeah.
Matt, back to you.
Thank you, Senator. And really, thanks for your continuous effort on this issue. As you explained, you've really taken a comprehensive approach at addressing PFAS from its source to its impact in the environment and really the impact to the community. And so it's a real demonstration of how we solve and make systematic change on a really big issue. And so I just want to thank you for continuing to do that.